right, you ready?
Ready.
Well, hello. I am really excited tonight. I'm Jim Morgan. I'm with Fishers Historical Society, and we have not necessarily Fishers, okay, but very much Indiana. Jennifer Capps is the Vice President of Curation and Exhibition. Is that right? Did I get that right?
Yeah, curator and exhibitions. Yep.
At the Benjamin Harrison Presidential Site downtown. It's on Delaware, I believe, is it not?
Yes,
Okay.
1230 North Delaware.
All righty. Well, she is here to talk to us about something that my wife and I like to go down there almost every year around Christmas time, just because that house is quite the thing to see. And one of the tour guides we had one time really spent a lot more time talking about Caroline Harrison than about Benjamin Harrison. And I learned a lot of things that I had no idea about. No one had ever told me who this woman was and all the things that she accomplished in her short life. Um, so let's talk a little bit about Caroline Harrison and what tell me about let's get into this first lady of first, I guess.
Sure. So Caroline, we say that October's kind of her month. She was born October 1st, 1832, and she is married to Benjamin Harrison October 20th, 1853, and then passes away October 25th, 1892, while they are still at the White House. But she definitely is kind of has that First Lady of First. And kind of with that theme, there are a couple of things that she did as First Lady. She gave the first public address to a group, a public speaking engagement, so to speak, to the Daughters of the American Revolution, and also in October. Um,
Was it
uh,
really?
yeah, it was founded in October. She is the first president general of the Daughters of the American Revolution. And so at their first big annual meeting, which is the Continental Congress, she gave a public address. And so that is the first time that a first lady gives a public speech like that, at an engagement, so to speak. Of course, it's more commonplace today, as first ladies have lots of engagements that they go to. Um, Also, along those lines, then as First Lady, she petitions Congress for funds. She wanted to do some improvements to the White House. When they moved into the White House in 1889, they found that it was in need of some repair, and they had a large number of family members that were going to be living in the White House with them. So their son and daughter and their families, which would be three grandchildren, were all going to be staying with them most of the time at the White House. They have other relatives that are going to come and go a little bit as well. And if you think about it, it is only the house at that time. So your first and second floors of the house, and no west wing, no east wing. So the presidential office areas are also on the second floor where those private family quarters are. So Caroline actually hired an architect to come up with a plan. Congress did not give her the money. I think they thought her plan might have been a little bit too grand. She had east and west wings. One whole wing would be an art gallery, the other wing would be office areas for the presidential and executive staff as well. So, kind of first to do that. But Congress did give her some funds to make minor improvements, I'll say, which were definitely needed. So she took it upon herself to start, cleaning and taking care of like the kitchen areas and improving the kitchen at the White House. That led to actually her looking at like all of the White House china. And Caroline Harrison was an artist. She did china painting and watercolors. So that was something near and dear to her heart. So she actually did one of the first inventories of all of the White House china and kind of gathered several of those pieces and the family dining room in a china cabinet as well. So those are kind of her, I'll say, first lady of first accomplishments in a nutshell there.
Well, I heard I read somewhere that the White House was in such that could be why they didn't really want to fund it. They said it was in such bad repair they were thinking about tearing it down before she, got in there to do this as well. That's what I had heard, and it was so overrun with rats that she brought in ferrets to ferret out the rats. I read.
She did, and that's also one of my favorite stories. And I'm glad you brought that particular little tidbit up. We recently received some additional letters from family members, and we didn't have as many of Caroline Harrison's personal letters in our collection. We have more of Benjamin Harrison's and other family members. But in this last group of items that were donated, there are several more of Caroline Harrison's personal letters. And in that, we have letters that she's writing to the grandchildren. Again, they're at the White House a lot, but it just so happens that when the ferrets come, they are not at the White House at that moment. So she actually writes to the grandchildren, to Benjamin Harrison McKee, the grandson, telling him that she was sorry he wasn't there to meet the man who brought the ferrets to take care of the rats at the White House. And that gentleman actually gives them a terrier puppy dog that she knows that his sister Mary will love when she gets to meet him. So yeah, she hired the gentleman to come in with the ferrets to help take care of the rat problem at the White House.
That's pretty crazy. Wasn't she the one that also was the first to bring in a Christmas tree into the White House?
They are the first to have a decorated
Okay.
Christmas tree at the White House. There are some accounts that earlier presidents, Pierce, I think in particular, they would bring in greenery. You might have fresh greenery, but the Victorians and this 1880s, late 1880s, 1890s time period is really kind of when a lot of that Christmas decor is taking off. So they have the first decorated Christmas tree at the White House for those grandchildren probably that are staying with them. So they decorate the tree. They have it in a room with the door closed so that Christmas morning they can open up the doors and surprise the grandchildren there at the White House with this lovely decorated Christmas tree at the White House.
That's very cool. Now you were talking about her with at the president of DAR in her first public speaker. Was she was maybe I'm trying to remember all the things I read, but wasn't she also the first lady to or the first person to start standing for the national anthem, or so it was something along that line, or that she started that custom?
Mhm. It is certainly a tradition. I'm not sure if I have, I'll say documentation to tribute to her, but that is something that is certainly was important to them, for her and for Benjamin Harrison, patriotism. And you see that with the Daughters of the American Revolution and their dedication. Yet the three main themes or mottos for DAR were education, patriotism, and historic preservation. Those were right from the beginning, from the 1890s, and continue on today. Caroline is, again, the first president general. There are five other ladies that are the founders that became to her with that organization. But so she's one of those early members, first president general. So definitely something that is near and dear to their hearts, and looking at her revolutionary ties and her patriots and that history and that pride in all of that. And Benjamin Harrison also, and I'm sure this made an impression on Caroline as well, being centennial president 100 years after George Washington. They had a big centennial ball in New York City, where Washington would have taken his oath of office. And there were so many flags and bunting and bandanas and whatnot that were on display during that centennial celebration, that Harrison actually was encouraging them to give them to public schools. And that led to the proclamation that Harrison signed, that flags should fly over public buildings and schools. So that would be something Caroline is also seeing there in all of that centennial celebration as well.
Yeah, I remember someplace I read where one of the reasons that she wanted to take that position with the Daughters of the Revolution was, Benjamin was a Civil War general, and so they just not that many years before, had just come out of the Civil War, and the country was still mending, the fences, and she saw that as a place where they could all come together, where they had the roots in common with the Revolution. They may have had the separation of the Civil War, but she was trying to bring them all back together. At least that's something I had read about that. So.
Hmm. Yeah, and definitely, that tied to women's organizations and all of the other activities that she had been involved through the years too, leading kind of up to that as well. She's very involved here in Indianapolis with the Orphan Society, was a chairman of the board and or on the board of the Orphan Society for and involved for 30 years here in Indianapolis. So I think that those social causes, that social work, and again, their dedication to education, patriotism, and historic preservation with DAR, lead up to that.
Okay, well, very good. So, I'm just trying to think. When now she was involved in suffrage as well, was she not? Because I remember seeing something at one. I think it's near Carriage House. They had a whole setup in there about something that she was involved with that.
Well, in I'll say a quiet late Victorian way, yes.
Yeah.
She, um, she wasn't as active like as a suffragette, but that is definitely going on. With Benjamin Harrison, is involved with that. We don't have, and I'm sure again she's in giving him a little helpful hints from behind the scenes too, because he writes a whole series of articles for Ladies Home Journal about our government. If the idea that if women were going to get the right to vote, they needed to have that information about how our system of government works. But Caroline, kind of along those notes, again, these I'll say quiet little subtle kind of things that they and in some ways they're not quiet, but she actually was asked by John Hopkins University to help raise funds, and she only agreed to do so if women were admitted. So that was something that she felt very strongly about. Again, women's education, that they had equal opportunities in that respect. And, she was not going to, as First Lady at that time, have her name on the campaign, so to speak, for the fundraising at John Hopkins unless they agreed that women could be admitted to the medical school as well.
Yes, I remember that and well, she comes from a background of women's education. Wasn't her father like a key player in like
Yes,
Ohio?
he was. And if I can share my screen, see if I can
Sure. You see
share
it down
my
there?
screen here. Yeah, I think so. I will share a photo. Hopefully, oh, let's see if I can make it larger here. Maybe. This is a photo of Caroline Harrison's family, so just kind of a fun one to show. Again, we don't have, earlier photos of her, but this is Caroline's parents there in the middle. So her father was John Witherspoon Scott, and her mother, Mary Potts Neal Scott, and then she has two brothers and two sisters. And Caroline is the one in the middle there. So this is taken during the Civil War. So in the 1860s, you can see her brothers are both in uniform in this particular image of them. But her father was a Presbyterian minister, but also an educator. He actually taught at Farmers College, where Benjamin Harrison was a student, which is outside of Cincinnati, and then was involved with Miami University. So it's at those locations there in Ohio that he's at Miami for many years. That Caroline and Benjamin Harrison first meet while they're in school at Oxford, Ohio. And her father is the first principal of the Oxford Female Institute, which is there yet. There's one of the buildings is still there, and it's kind of part of Miami campus today. But yes, was early proponent for that all of his children should have a good education. So Caroline and her two sisters all attended the Oxford Female Institute there in Ohio. Stop sharing that there.
Yeah.
So yeah, it definitely was something, and he taught it at other schools through the years as well.
Oh, very good. Well, you say you've got some kind of some slides and some different things. I'll let you kind of have fun with that for a minute. So
Sure. And let's see if I will share again. We have some early photos of Caroline Harrison, again, kind of from that time period. So this is kind of an interesting one, again, from that Civil War time period. So you don't see too many, early photographs of Caroline. Again, her and Benjamin are meeting in the 1850s. They're married in 1853. So this photograph or image of her is from the Civil War time period as well. And this one, I'll show you the back of the frame here as well. Oh, sorry. Um, Sorry about that. So we will do a share again here. This is actually the back of that one. So you can actually see the date there on the back of it. Oop. And where it was taken, which is it has the stamps from 1865 on the back of that frame. So very cool earlier image of her with this really nice documentation on the back. It happens to have Homesdale, Pennsylvania, which was where her family was from, that particular area, in Pennsylvania as well. And I'll show you real quickly here too. Also her diploma from the Oxford Female Institute. It's interesting then again because her father is signing her diploma. You can kind of see on the bottom right hand side, his name is a little darker ink where you have John Scott right there. That her father is principal of the Oxford Female Institute. So she has art, music, education. She's doing a lot of her painting while she's there as well. So that's kind of where that starts. And I mentioned, she does a lot of China painting. We have several pieces in our collection of her China paintings through the years. This particular piece here is a chocolate pot that Caroline Harrison painted. We have a lot of plates in our collection, a lot of bird plates, a lot of little scenery. She did all of her painting on Haviland blanks, and that actually is also their White House china. If you look at the time period, she's very for supporting Benjamin Harrison with American-made products, but she felt that the China companies, that no one quite had the same skill as and quality of China that they have from the Haviland in France. So she helped design their White House china as well, as we were talking about a First Lady of First a little bit ago as well. Pull up the cup that we have in our collection. She actually did a sketch that we have in our collection as well. But this is the White House Demitasse cup and saucer from the Harrison collection. And we have a letter in our collection as well that she says she wants the eagle on their china to be similar to that of the Lincoln china. And if you look at the Lincoln White House china, the eagles are very similar. And then she was very fond of this cobalt blue coloring that you could kind of see on either side of the eagle and on the saucer there as well. And on the plate and around the saucer, you have 44 stars representing the 44 states that were in the Union during Harrison's presidency. So she's writing all of this information, kind of her plan and what they're designing, to the daughter, Mary Harrison McKee, in a letter. So we're lucky enough to have that letter in our collection, documenting sort of that process and what she is envisioning for their china. And we have a watercolor sketch that she did of corn, like around a plate edge. Now it turned out a little bit differently than their final product, but again, she's involved in that process. She's also asking her art instructor, his name was Paul Putsky, to help with that China design as well. So they're working hand in hand with the company to come up with this design and pattern for the Harrison White House China.
Oh, very cool. So, so now they were there. What years were they there in the White House?
They are arriving in March of 1889, and Harrison then is departing in March of 1890. 4, but Caroline, or 1893, excuse me, but Caroline passes away in October of 1892. So she's there from, March of 1889 till October of 1892.
And her father also passed at the White House, did he not?
He did, and actually a month after Caroline Harrison passed away. So he was 90 years old when he passed away, and had been, he kept working. He had a job actually at the executive office building right there near the White House and was nearby with through that time. He passed away in the White House as well. So kind of a sad time. Caroline Harrison, they had taken up to the Adirondack Mountains. She had tuberculosis. And she had had, bronchial issues a lot throughout her life, but really started having trouble in that kind of that last winter of 1892. But by later in the year, they're taking her up to Loon Lake. Harrison rented a cottage up there for her to have treatments. But they bring her back to the White House, and she passes away at the White House. And Josephine Knipe, who was a seamstress and a housekeeper for the Harrisons for many years, she was here in Indianapolis, went to Washington with them, came back to help after the White House years with Benjamin Harrison as well. She kept a diary, which has just been made available to us in the last couple of years here. The family still has the diary, but we were able to get a scan of it and do a transcription. And it's very sad, but also very insightful because she is in the room at the White House as Caroline Harrison is not feeling well. She mentions on their anniversary in October that Caroline acted a little bit better, but then quickly declined again. And she's witnessing, this touching moments between Benjamin Harrison and Caroline in those last few hours. And there gives that personal account of her passing. And then a month later, unfortunately, also is there when Caroline's father, Dr. Scott, passes away as well.
But from what I understand, that was kind of the end of Benjamin's campaign. He just pretty much didn't, you know.
Yeah, yeah, and it's they didn't campaign as long back then. So, it was something that, it's happening in October, the election is in November. She's ill in the months, leading up to that as well. And Cleveland actually um also agreed that he would not campaign in respect of Caroline's passing as well. So kind of an interesting chain of events there, and you have fewer campaign items in some ways than for that 1892 campaign when he's running for reelection than you do in 1888 as well. So yeah, neither one of them campaigned the way they would have if Caroline had not passed away.
Well, very interesting. Well, I was going to say too, if people have not been to the Benjamin Harrison home, especially around Christmas time, but I mean, really any time, it is such a neat place to go to. Now, we were just talking about that beautiful porch that's right behind you there. I'm a history nerd, so I thought, his campaign was the front porch campaign where people would come walking up to him to his front porch. I assumed it was on this lovely front porch. That is not the case, but that was added after the White House, I guess, right?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, he added the porch in 1895 after the White House, but he enjoyed the porch though. They had a smaller porch off to the side, but the campaign was all kind of at the front stoop and door area. And you mentioned Christmas. I do have one photo I will share here just as well. Um, of our parlor, we do decorate quite a bit for Christmas. So this is kind of our typical look here. The Harrisons again did have that first decorated tree at the White House. So we have a tree that we put up at the front parlor here of the home and some toys. Some of the dolls and things belong to the Harrison family. Other toys are from the time period. But we decorate with things that they know that they had at that time too. You can kind of see some homemade ornaments on the tree that we know were things you could find patterns from at the time. Wooden soldiers are on our tree, and we have a program a lot of school children come and do and make your own wooden soldier. That's been a program that we've done for many, many years at the site for children to come because wooden soldiers were given to Benjamin Harrison for his Christmas tree. Again, that relationship to him being a Civil War soldier and the Civil War. Harrison actually dressed up as Santa one year for the grandchildren as well. But Caroline Harrison, this was a special time for the family to share. We have some gifts and things that were given to her, a vanity set up in the bedroom, pieces that we know were given to her for Christmas gifts as well.
Well, we were talking about before we went live here too. There's some unique things about the campaigning when he ran the first time for president, where he would go out on his little front stoop and meet with people who would come in and just kind of fill up his front yard and steal his fence, I guess you said, the boards and stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but then I don't know if people realize that in Indianapolis, and from what I understand, they started calling it the Grand Old Party, or maybe what you corrected me on something, but the Columbia Club was founded at the same time, and so they would walk back and forth to downtown to the Columbia Club.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, so it was the Columbia Club kind of formed as a marching club for Benjamin Harrison in 1888. And it's still obviously something that's around yet today. But they would have like torchlight parades were very common at this time. Kind of start with Lincoln actually in the late 1860s, but continue on through this time. So they have a torchlight parade, I know, for Benjamin Harrison, kind of from the house to downtown at one point as well. So always have that connection to the circle and to the Columbia Club.
well, excellent. Now, do if someone wants to come down and see the house and learn about stuff, do they need to make an appointment? Do they just show up? How does that work?
It would be best to come to our website to look at our tour times if you can. They do have like an online reservation system there, or to call and someone can help you do that as well. It's just going to vary from day to day on and time slot of whether that particular tour is full or not. So it's always better to kind of check our website and do that. But we have a couple of different special things coming up, during the holiday season. So we have a live family Christmas day on December 7th, which you have an actor. So I believe that you might be able to meet some of the Harrison Home staff that day who will be preparing for Christmas dinner. And then we also have Winter Wonderland, which is our Christmas candlelight theater, which is December 13th through the 15th. So a couple of different activities. Again, if you go to our website and look at events that are coming up for the holiday season as well.
Well, that's excellent. Well, it's always a good time to go down there. It's a beautiful building, and it's fun to walk back into time, and see. And the guides that I have run into there have been incredibly knowledgeable and gracious in getting you through the process, and all three stories of the house plus the carriage house out back. So.
Right. Yeah, and right now we have, again, exhibits. There's an exhibit space in the Welcome Center and also on the third floor that are changing spaces. But you can find out more about Caroline and both of them. The rats and the ferrets are out in the Welcome Center right now, and right now we have some information about her passing on the third floor too.
Oh, that's there now.
Yes. So actually the carriage house one unfortunately is going to be closing soon, but the third floor will be through the end of the year, and then we will be doing different rotations in 2025. So yeah.
Well, very good. Well, Carol, Jennifer, thank you so much for sharing with us. I've been looking forward to doing this and letting people know here in Indianapolis and Fishers and what have you, that what a cool first lady we had so long ago that nobody really knows that much about. So
Yeah, yep. She did a very interesting life through the years, and yeah, that lasting legacy with different things that she did at the White House and with the Daughters of the American Revolution, especially.
and she got a lot done in a short period of time. It was over about 3 years. So
Right.
yeah. Well, thank you so very much. We will definitely try to have you back on again for something else down the road. So
Great. Well, thank you.
thank you very much. Good night.
All
Bye.
right, night.